Hey, welcome back. So, as the title says, third time's the charm. This time, we're doing the Wii HDMI mod again, and I expect it to go successfully this time. Unlike last couple of times, where we had some issues, it's all, as far as I can tell, it's all been worked out. So, I'm going to give you a little spoiler here. Anybody who was here last two streams, or especially the last stream, you know we had some issues installing. But this right here, this is one of the Wiis we were working on prior on that previous stream, and it's working. It's got the original. It's got the mod I was trying to install on that stream, and it is working. Turns out the problem, as stupid as this is going to sound, was that it had a bad FPGA. The FPGA that I soldered on there came out of my tray of FPGAs that I have over here, and it was just out of just pure bad luck, I pulled a faulty FPGA out of my tray. And that was the source of all the problems. After the stream ended last night, I did tinker around with it a little bit more, and I had the idea to take one of these other confirmed good old HDMI mods and install it on that same board with the flex cable still in place, and it fired right up. So at that point I knew it was a problem with the board, and I swapped the FPGA from that board, from the board I was testing with, to the new Wii HDMI board, and it just worked. It just immediately worked with the new HDMI board too. So I've built up a second one here, which we're going to install today. And it's using also a known good FPGA. So this is actually going to succeed. Crossing my fingers. Alright, so the board we're installing on previously had an HDMI mod on it, so we're going to actually, and this HDMI QSB is kind of messed up, so we're just going to remove it, and we're going to basically do a clean, fresh install. So I have to do that first. Let me, I meant to do this before the stream started, but time kind of got away from me. So, see if I can track down my tweezers. Ah, here they are. Okay, so we're going to remove this HDMI QSB. We're going to do the... Oh. My knife tip's not turned on. Well, that explains the lack of thermal capability there. All right. All right. That's done. Get that out of there. And we'll clean up this area a little bit. So, on the last stream, I attempted the installation using the original Wii Dual Flex that I have. And since that's on that other motherboard now that I was trying to do the installation on last time, we're back to using the Flex that I designed. So if you didn't see the original live streams, I don't think I made them public because they were failures, and I'm not trying to hide my failures. It's just that it doesn't help anybody later on. So what this mod is it's a Wii HDMI mod that lets you install Wii HDMI support, similar to like the Wii Dual, only minus the analog part. So it just does the HDMI, and it uses a flex cable that is modeled after the Wii Dual's flex cable for installation, to make it as easy as possible to install. And these early flex cables that I'm using here were made by Oshpark using their flex cable service. They're not perfect. When I get ready to actually start selling these, I'm gonna switch to a manufacturer that can build flex cables to a better spec than Oshpark can, but that hasn't materialized yet. So working with Oshpark prototypes. But anyway, this flex cable is going to install right here to this encoder chip on the Wii, and then let's see here. So the flex cable goes here, and then the main board of the HDMI mod goes here, and solders onto the flex, and then there's a ribbon cable that connects it to the HDMI port, which goes up here where the USB ports are. HDMI port connects right there. So, just like the Wii Dual, this was definitely inspired by the Wii Dual in terms of how, like, the form factor and how it is installed. Oh, well, yeah, so the flex cable is actually dimensionally, like, pretty much dead on. The problem with it is that it doesn't have cancellations at all, because apparently Oshpark is not capable, doesn't have the capability to do cancellations, unfortunately, on their flex cable service. So everywhere that I've placed cancellated pads, they just cut the pad short from the edge of the flex cable, and didn't plate the ends, so there's no actual copper, or there's no conductive material at all on the edges, which is why these Oshpark flex cables are harder to install than what hopefully the final flex cable design will be. But it's good enough for these initial tests at least. But it was a lot easier to install this using the official Wii Dual Flex that I had. But eventually, when they're ready for sale, so I did put the vias. Because I've done cancellations. Obviously, I've done cancellations before. This rigid PCB that goes with it has cancellations on it. I did do cancellations on the ends of the PCB, and they just didn't plate the cancellations. That's basically what it comes down to. The pad in the design goes all the way out to the end, and then there's a via placed across the end of the pad, or the edge of the flex design, and Oshpark just They just didn't plate the castellations. So I don't know why they didn't. Maybe it did have to do with the person who looked at it, but this flex has gone through 2 revisions, and both of them they did not castellate they did not plate the edges of the castellated pads. So I took that to mean that Oshpark does not support castellations on their flex service. Could be wrong, but that was my takeaway. So this is a little bit of a pain, because basically all it's getting connected in on these pads that don't have proper castellations is the layer of pad underneath is just bridging over to the solder from the pad on the actual board, which is a little precarious. Not exactly what I wanted. Oh, yeah, you're right. They don't officially support castellations, but they will do them. They just don't do any of the finishing of the castellations, which means that you have to kind of finish them out on your own. Okay, I'm going to take a peek under the microscope here. One of these days I'll get me a microscope that has a camera. That'll be nice. And this pad is, the pad on the very end is clearly not soldered. Okay, well it is now. Yeah, I've got to touch several of these up. Okay. Looks good now. Now that we know that probing the pads, doesn't kill anything on the Wii, I'm gonna go through here and probe the pads and make sure that everything's soldered. Didn't have to do that with the Wii Dual Flex, but I do have to do that with this Oshpark Flex. So here we go. That's good. That's good. That's not good. Okay. So there's still 2 pads that didn't connect, so let's see here. That's this one. And this one. Okay, let's double check. Cool. Oh, I have an Amscope something or other. I don't know which model Amscope I have exactly, but it doesn't have a camera. Okay, so that flex is installed and everything checked out as far as the continuity, so we should be good to install this board. Now, I've learned a valuable lesson in the last 2 streams, which is not to solder all the pins in the multi out. Just the only, well, I mean, when you're installing this, yeah, you know what? Good practice before you test, don't solder all the pins in the multi out, because then it's just way harder to get it out. So the only pins you actually have to solder for the mod to work is you have to solder you gotta solder this pin right here, because this is the 3.3 volt pin, and you probably want to also solder, which one do we want to go with? Probably just one of these ground pins. So you solder these 2 in, and that gets you the 3.3 volt power that you need, and that gets you ground. So with that, that's enough that you can do a, oh, actually, you know what? That's a ground pad right next to power. So solder those 2. That would be the easiest to remove if you needed to. And then don't solder this one down here. So get those 2 pads soldered, and that's all you need on the multi-out. And then here, you just have to solder the cancellations, and you're good to go. So let's go ahead and just press that board down. We're going to switch over to the knife tip. This is inadequate. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let me check that under the scope. Oh. Oh snap. One of the pads lifted from the flex cable. Just going to push that back in place. It's another one of those kinds of problems that you shouldn't have with the final version, because, well, hopefully you don't have to remove and replace the same flex cable over and over again. I think this one's been pulled off of a board twice now in my testing, so it's taken a toll. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that's soldered well. So I'm gonna do a little patch job here. Okay. So this pad here is the one that tore loose, but we still got continuity. All right, so we should be good to do some testing. Oh, we got to solder in the HDMI. Let's do that real quick. Just like the main board, my advice is now to only solder the minimum necessary on here to do a test. So you need to solder this because this is your 5-volt power, which is required by the HDMI port to do detection. And you need to get some sort of ground connection. So I'm going to add a little bit of solder to one of these ground points, these ground anchors, just to provide ground electrical connection for ground and anchor it a little bit while we're doing our tests. So everything is soldered in place now, but nothing's permanent, so if we need to pull this back apart, we can. Let's go ahead and take a flex cable. I've gone ahead and gotten a new flex because the one I was using is pretty rough looking from all the bending and removing and reinserting and then removing and reinserting. It's gotten to the point where that one doesn't look so nice anymore. So I'm gonna put this new one in. Okay, and we'll bend the flex cable. And that's how it's supposed to look. Normally I would tape this down with some electrical tape, but I don't see my roll of electrical tape right now. I think it's out in the garage, so we're just gonna proceed without it. Okay, so everything that needs to be connected should be connected now. Going to check something here. You know what? I can't remember which pin actually is 3.3 volts on this multi-out, so for good measure, I'm going to solder this pin too, because both of these pins need to be tied to the 3.3 volt rail, because that's one of the pins is 3.3 volts, and one of the pins is what am I trying to say here? Detection. It's a cable detect pin, and when it's tied high, it knows that it's allowed to run at 480p, which is what you want, so that you can be able to, so that you're able to do 480p mode on the mod. So, but I can't remember which one actually is 3.3 volt because I just connected those two together on the board internally. But there you go. That's the install. Let's go ahead and do a little test here. Where did my heatsink go? There it is. where's the thermal pad for the CPU? That's important, I think. It seems mildly important. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and switch over to game capture. Oh, let me spray a little deoxit into that HDMI port because this has been through the ultrasonic cleaner. And I don't know, it seems like whenever these little mini HDMI ports go through the ultrasonic cleaner or get flux on them or anything like that, they become a little bit unreliable until you give them a good clean. And the best clean that I can think of is deoxit. It's so good at what it does. Alright, so that's hooked up. Let's get the power plugged in. And this should be working. Check that out. A working Wii HDMI mod. What a miracle. You know, it shouldn't be that impressive since I've done it before multiple times. But this has been kind of a saga with this particular version of the mod, so it's very nice to see that. Oh, my sensor bar is not plugged in. Let me plug in my sensor bar real quick. Hey, check that out. I can't remember. Do I have this Wii? Let's see. Do I have the settings? Turn to... Yeah, I got it for 480i. All right. Well, sweet. It's working. Third time's the charm. Like I said, I'm gonna unhook it and actually put it in its shell so that I can get that heat sink cinched down. Oh wait, before I do that, with all the swapping things around that I did while I was testing, I'm not sure if this board has... I'm not sure if this board has a GC Video 2.4C or GC Video 3.0. Oh, you know what? Crap. I didn't wire up the pad wire. Okay. Let's wire up the pad wire. And then we'll figure out which version of GC Video is on here. And then, once we know both of those things, we will look into buttoning this thing back up. And pad goes to test point 27. Well, that didn't work out. Yeah, no, I didn't wire the pad wire for the IGR, so I'm doing that real quick. And once that's done, yeah, so the pad wire hooks up to test point 27. Sorry about all the noise. That is entirely too long. So test point 27 right here is where the pad wire goes. Alright, where'd that... There's that heatsink. Okay. Slap this thing back together. Get the GameCube controller plugged in, and we're gonna figure out which firmware version is actually on this one, because I've lost track of what parts came from where at this point and what's programmed to what. So back to game capture. What? There we go. Okay. Okay, yeah, this one's running 3.0D, so we don't have to update it. Sweet. Awesome. Okay. Let's go ahead and actually put this thing kind of back together. Now, in this stream, I'm not going to show how you cut the hole for the HDMI, because the housing that goes to this board, the hole is already cut. So no need to show it again, but there's a little cut that goes, let's see, you can't see that. So there's a little bit of a cutout that goes right here next to the USB ports. That gets filed down a little bit. And then on the top shell, you cut off a portion, you cut and file a portion of the top shell as well, right next to the USB ports. So it's a pretty easy install of the, as far as the plastic work that needs to be done is concerned. Okay, let's put some screws. There we go. That makes more sense, doesn't it? You know what? Before I button everything up, I just realized that I should probably solder in all of the anchor points as well, because I only soldered the minimum required points on the board, and there's quite a few anchor points that help keep everything held together. So let's go ahead and do those, since we know that everything's working now. There's no need to remove it. But yeah, I think definitely my recommendation from this point on is that if you're going to install one of these mods, that before you go and solder everything, probably function test it and make sure it works before you anchor everything in, because then it becomes quite difficult to do anything about it if you need to remove or adjust anything on the mod. You definitely want the HDMI port to be anchored really well, because that's going to be mechanically the most stressed part of this design, since you'll be plugging and unplugging and whatnot. But you also want to anchor the AV port, because there is a little push button there. Wayne, welcome back. So here's the deal. The HDMI mod works now, so we're good. I'm just putting it back together now. Since you were here for the last one, and I don't know how long you've been watching, the problem with the mod in the last stream was that the FPGA was bad. The actual FPGA chip for the mod was where the problem was coming from, and it took a lot of troubleshooting across 2 streams, and then also in my spare time between streams, before I finally thought, you know, what if this is just a bad FPGA chip? And I swapped it out, and it just worked immediately. So that's really all there was that was wrong, and I feel stupid about it, because that should have been one of my early troubleshooting steps. But I just couldn't imagine that the random FPGA that I pulled out of my tray just happened to be faulty. Okay. Alright, this thing's fully anchored in. Let's go ahead and reassemble. Alterations, you need to fix your Tim Worthington N64 RGB mod. What's wrong with it? Sorry you couldn't see what I was doing there. I sometimes lose track of the camera. Oh, okay. You're the one. Oh, so you had the crazy jail bars in the Reddit thread. Okay. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that. That's crazy. I looked at the thread, and I've seen stuff like that before. Well, not really, not specifically that. So it's weird. It's like your issue is like these kind of like wavy bars, like these wavy kind of they're not like just normal vertical bars, like straight vertical bars. They're like these wavy, squiggly, weird looking bars. I've seen things kind of like that before. Usually it has to do with, in my experience, the digital sync line not being well attached on both ends. But you know, I just I don't know for sure. That's crazy. I've never seen that exact particular effect, but it's kind of bizarre. Kind of bizarre. God, I hate putting Wii's back together and taking them apart and everything about them. Oh, what order does any of this stuff go together? I can't remember. It's not good to take a Wii apart and then not put it back together the same day. It's bad. It's a bad strategy. Here's what we need to do. We need to get these screws out and start putting them in. Tried all sorts of things so far. Nothing's fixed it yet. Is your what? Okay, quick question. Do you have a what model is your N64? Does it have a VDC NUS encoder, or is it a MAV NUS or an AVDC NUS? And you're using an adapter. And if you're using an adapter, is it the one that Tim Worthington sells? The little flex cable type adapter that he sells? Or is it a rigid one like the Bordy version? Is it Tim's, or is it so you've got the Mavnus chip. I made a mistake here. I need to pull this thing back apart. Damn it. Damn it. I didn't put in the Wi-Fi antennas. Yeah, is it Tim's flex cable, or is it a rigid cable, or a rigid adapter like the Bordy one that I use? Oh, seriously? You have to wait a couple minutes between replies? You know what? There's not very many people here. Let me turn off slow mode. I guess it was on by default. How do I change chat to fast mode? Let's see here. Stream options. Advanced, maybe? Enable slow mode. Aha! Okay. Okay, try chatting again. I changed the slow mode setting so that it's not a minute delay, it's only a few seconds. See how fast we can talk to each other in here. All right. Okay. So you're using Tim's adapter. I'm gonna basically, this is my opinion on Tim's adapter. I think that Tim's adapter is garbage. Okay. So delay is good. Yeah, I think Tim's adapter is garbage, and I wouldn't use it. I would use the Bordy style adapter. In my experience from failed N64 RGB mods that have been sent to me for repair, usually people are using Tim's Flex adapter, and that is usually the source of weird, bizarre video artifacts, is his adapter. It's just not a very robust design. And I think that the fact that it's angled the way that it is in an L shape makes it to where that it has these weak points in the flex cable itself, and I think it just develops like stress cracks in the flex cable, just from the process of installing it alone. And I just know that I've yanked a bunch of the flex cable adapters out and put in rigid Mavnus adapters, and it's fixed the problem most of the time. In some cases, the wiring didn't even need to be replaced. It was just bad. It was just a bad flex adapter. So yeah, I would stay away from using Tim's official flex cable. It's kind of shitty. It's a good idea, but it just, the way that it's implemented in that L shape makes it extremely fragile. Okay. I think we can start putting the plastic bits on. Yeah, his flex cable is very fragile, and the adhesive that holds it on the board doesn't seem to really work once you start soldering on it. It doesn't hold up to heat at all, so it just ends up wiggling around all over the place while you're working on it. It's just not a very good design, unfortunately. Okay, where is this? Where's this other? Ah, there we go. Other plastic piece. Yeah, if you put alcohol in it, it completely destroys the adhesive. It's over. If you even try to clean it after soldering, the the adhesive is compromised. It kind of defeats the entire purpose. Whoops, that's the wrong screw for that hole. That goes there. You know, the Wii would not be nearly as annoying to work on. It could have the same number of screws, okay? But it would be a lot less annoying to work on if there wasn't so many different types of screw inside this thing. I mean, technically there's only 2 different types of screw, but the pattern that they have to be installed in is so specific, so frustratingly specific, that it gets very old very fast. At least there's kind of a color code type thing going on. All the black screws go into the black plastic bits, and all of the silver screws go directly on metal. But that's still, even with that, there's a kind of a pattern to it that you have to follow, that if you don't do things in the right order, it doesn't all fit together. Yeah, the GameCube sucks too. Nintendo just didn't want people getting in here. Basically, I think what they did is they designed it like this to discourage people from getting inside of them and doing any kind of work on them. Because this is not it's not exactly my idea of a good time. Oh, let's see here. I'm having a brain fart here. How does this go? Oh. That's how it goes. Well, crap. Oh. There we go. Wait a second. Is that right? Wait. Where is that? This piece. Oh. Oh no. Where's the little square screw hole? There it is. Okay. This little insert right here that goes in this plastic piece pops out like it's just got nowhere to be, and it'll ruin your day, I'll tell you. Because if you don't put it in, then you won't be able to lock the clock battery. You won't be able to screw the battery cover back in. And that is truly a pain in the ass. Because that means basically full disassembly to get back in here and fix it. No, you know what? Maybe that's not right. Maybe this shield goes underneath. Okay. Doesn't seem right to me. Maybe the antennas go over this shield. I can't remember. Yeah, that seems more correct. Looks like nothing's being pinched in this scenario. Okay, where is my optical drive for this one? It has Super Mario Galaxy in it. There it is. Go ahead and hook this optical drive up. That way we can do a little actual in-game test here. No. Come on. Okay, I think this thing's put together enough that we can safely run it for an extended period of time. Let's fire up Super Mario Galaxy. See how that looks. Let's see here, what's the aspect ratio set to? I don't know, the Wii has a... the Wii just kind of like... I don't know, man. My capture card is weird about the Wii's aspect ratio. There we go. That looks right. Just move that off to the side there. Okay, let's fire up Super Mario Galaxy. Oh, you know what? I don't think we're getting any audio, and that is probably because I haven't gone into the settings here, but this is probably not running in HDMI mode. It's probably running in DVI mode. So I think that's how it works by default. And it won't let us into the menu because the Wii doesn't pull the GameCube controller when it's in Wii mode. Oh, you have audio? You have audio from the game? Because I'm not hearing any audio on my end. And I'm not seeing any audio on the meter. Let me check something. Yeah, there should be music in this section. Okay, I'm going to power down this Wii and then power it back up and get into the menu. That's one frustrating thing about the Wii. is that it doesn't appear to pull the GameCube controller when it's not in some sort of GameCube mode. So you can't get into the menu while playing a Wii game unless it supports GameCube controller specifically. Okay. Let's see. Actually, I think it should be output settings. Enhanced DVI mode on. Okay, that's what we need to have. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we're still getting any audio. Let's do this again. Oh, that didn't save. But we still don't appear to be getting any audio. Am I crazy? Or are we not getting any audio? I wonder if this is a No, it's digital. It's a digital audio. Straight from the it comes straight off of the encoder as well. Let's see here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Cool. All right, is that better? Okay, I turned it down too low. Okay. Alright, seems like it's fine now. Is it fine now? Oh man, I wish I had a save on this Wii. So that I could skip all of this. Alright. So yeah, this is what the Wii HDMI looks like. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice, I think. I've been very happy with it. Of course, I've had my personal Wii, you know, set up with the Wii HDMI for, I mean, before I even designed my own mod for it. I had hacked a GameCube HDMI, a GC HDMI board. Actually, I've got one right here. GC HDMI board, meant to be installed in a GameCube. I hacked that into my Wii before designing my own board, and then I went through and actually put together something that fit the Wii correctly. And now here we are to the final stage, best version. Which I'm really happy with. Oh, you got a GC Loader pre-order? Nice. I got one too, finally, from the European site, which wasn't what I was hoping for, but I might actually get mine earlier than expected because I went with the European site instead of going through Dan, because he seems to have to sell out in about 3 seconds flat whenever he puts them up for pre-order. Oh, you got yours on the first pre-order run with Dan? Amazing. Were you just sitting there hitting refresh over and over and over and over again? Because I was there like 2 minutes. I was there like 2 minutes after pre-order started, and it was sold out, and I was like, okay. And then the next round of pre-orders that next week, I was there on time, and they were sold out before I could even place the order. And so then I thought, you know what? I'll check that. I'll check the European site, and on the second round of pre-orders, they had some available on the European site. So I ordered there, and I'll pay a little extra for shipping, but hopefully get mine soon. Which I'm very excited for. I've been waiting for a GameCube solution for a long time. And glad that Dan decided to take it on. It took like 20 minutes to get into the site just due to it being overloaded. That's crazy. I remember I was looking at Twitter around that time, and Dan was tweeting that he had upped his Amazon Web Services like to the maximum capacity to try to support how many people were coming into the site, and it still crashed. Oh. Well, guys, glad everybody came by. Check this stream out. Looks like Voltar's streaming right now. I guess probably everybody's over there too. So I've demonstrated what I wanted to here, that this mod does work. So now I'm going to be looking into getting the flex cables and the boards produced in some kind of, you know, decent sized quantity for an initial run. And these should go up for sale, hopefully soon. It's kind of hard to tell what's going to go on. Like, it's kind of hard to tell what's happening with manufacturing kind of worldwide right now because of the coronavirus stuff. and we're so reliant on China for almost everything that it's there's some questions about what timelines are going to look like for products like this to get you know, to get out there, to get made and then get back here to the United States. But hopefully this will be ready fairly soon. Assembly with JLC PCB. Well, that would be nice, but because it's very affordable. But they don't stock the FPGAs that go into this or the SPI flash chips that go into this board, which means that I'd either have to do assembly. But yeah, basically I would have to do partial assembly here anyway. And the component count on these boards is fairly small. So if I'm going to have to do partial assembly, I might as well do full assembly myself, or send them off to a different board house that does that allows you to send in your own parts for assembly service. Like PCBWay has assembly service and stuff. So, and there's potential. I have some potential other contacts I could go through to get manufacturing done. I don't know how many I want to make for an initial run because I really don't know. I mean, the Wii Dual is unavailable right now, so anybody who wants a Wii HDMI solution, this is like the only one. But oh yeah, get the SMT stencil. Yeah, I do most everything here with a stencil unless I'm just doing prototypes. Which, for prototyping, before I get a stencil made, I have an eye extruder, which I use with solder paste, which is excellent. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure. Seems like there's a lot of people who still want a Wii HDMI solution, and since the Wii Dual is no longer available, this should be a good alternative, and this should cost less than the Wii Dual as well, because there's less parts. So I haven't figured out exactly what the price point's going to have to be for this, but it should be fairly reasonable, given that it's got doesn't have the DAC chip or anything like that is needed in the Wii Dual. So if all you're interested in is HDMI anyway, then this would be a really nice solution. But alright, well I think that's about it. I appreciate you coming by for the stream. I am going to go ahead and call it for this one, and we'll stream again soon. Catch you next time. Later.